She's just speculating and saying things because she wants to.
She's not the only.
Democratic Senator Joe Manchin attacked Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for being divisive, despite the fact that he is the one that is siding with Republicans over Democrats. So this discussion is all about the $3.5 trillion budget bill that Joe Manchin does not support, despite the fact that every other Democrat appears to support it. But here's the discussion between him and Dana Bash on CNN.
I'm sure you've heard your fellow Democrat, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, said this about you in a tweet. Manchin has weekly huddles with Exxon and is one of many senators who gives lobbyists their pen to write so-called bipartisan fossil fuels bills. It's killing people. Sick of this bipartisan corruption that masquerades as clear-eyed moderation. This is your fellow Democrat.
Well,
is it true that you have weekly meetings with Exxon
not.
and other
absolutely
lobbyists
not.
from fossil fuel?
No, they don't. Weekly meetings. I don't.
It's just false.
I keep my door open for everybody. It's totally false. And those type of superlatives, it's just awful. Continue to divide. I don't know the young lady that well. I really don't. I've met her one time, I think, between sets here, but that's it. So we have not had any conversations. She's just speculating and saying things because she wants to.
She's not the only one. I'm sure you've heard. There are a number of your fellow Democrats who say that you're opposed to this because you're bought and paid for by corporate donors.
Because it makes no sense at all. I just gave you the facts. I've said this: you're entitled to your own facts. I mean, your own opinions. You're just not entitled to create your own facts to support them, and that's exactly what they're doing.
What a bullshitter. So in a second here, I'll detail some of the Exxon involvement with Joe Manchin. But before we even get there, I just have to quickly address the AOC criticism that she's the one being divisive. Joe Manchin is the one that is siding with Republicans. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden support the passage of the $3.5 trillion budget bill. Joe Manchin is the one being divisive by siding with Republicans and being against it. The idea of claiming that AOC is divisive is so completely ridiculous. Now, before I go on to a little more details around Joe Manchin and his big donors, first I want to show you just this here. This could have easily been looked up by Dana Bash and CNN. You have a CNN host here making lots of money, big paycheck, big team behind her. They couldn't quickly look up Joe Manchin's big donors and use that as leverage in this discussion. But no, of course she didn't. But a quick search will find Joe Manchin's top 5 industries here in terms of donors to show you Joe Manchin's page. It's from Open Secrets. So we're looking at, Wall Street, lawyers, law firms, retired, real estate, oil and gas. Obviously here, a lot of interests when it comes to the taxes that are involved in the budget bill, and also the oil and gas industry when it comes to the climate investments. So obvious influences here on Joe Manchin for him not supporting this budget bill. But now let's get to this quick clip of Joe Manchin supporting up to $4 trillion in spending just 8 months ago, before all of a sudden he had this big change of heart.
Most important thing, do an big infrastructure. Spend $2, $3, $4 trillion over a 10-year period on infrastructure. You want to put everybody back to work? There's a lot of people that lost their jobs, that those jobs aren't coming back. They need a place to work to make a living. Every state can start infrastructure programs.
So that was in January. I covered this in a video. I'll link to it above this video. But 8 months ago, he supported up to $4 trillion in spending. Now he's against it. So who is the one being divisive here? Now let's get to the fact checking that Dana Bash did not do. So there's a lot here. Let me quickly go over what I can. And this scratches the surface in terms of Joe Manchin and his corruption. But let's start with this here. So Exxon lobbyists, this is from July. Exxon lobbyists caught on video talking about undermining Biden's climate push. And Joe Manchin is one of his secret weapons. So from the NPR article here, McCoy, who's the lobbyist, the Exxon lobbyist, was tricked by the activists who said they were job recruiters. He talked about working with shadow groups, supporting a carbon tax that he believes will never happen, and influencing senators to weaken climate elements of President Biden's infrastructure plan. Quote, Joe Manchin, I talk to his office every week. McCoy bragged to the interviewer. He called the Democratic senator from West Virginia a kingmaker and discussed how, on the Democrat side, we look for the moderates on these issues in their efforts to stop policies that could hurt the company's business. So here's an Exxon lobbyist discussing how he uses Joe Manchin. Why didn't Dana Bash have this ready? just the complete lack of journalism in the mainstream press when they have all the money, all the resources is really crazy. I mean, here I am, one guy does this whole show showing you the easy facts, quick Google search, and Dana Bash couldn't even do this. More here. From Grist, Exxon lobbyists paid the 6 Democrats named in the Sting video, the Exxon video, nearly $333,000. So another example here of the kind of money that they're taking from Exxon. Also, this could have been brought up. Leaked audio of Senator Joe Manchin call with billionaire donors provides rare glimpse of deal making on filibuster and January 6th commission. So I've covered this article, this story a number of times now. Basically, leaked audio of Joe Manchin on a call with corporate donors, showing how he works with his corporate donors, these wealthy donors, to influence policy. Another example that Dana Bash could have brought up. Also, from CNBC here, Rupert Murdoch funded Fox Corporation PAC contributes to Democrat Joe Manchin's campaign. So, Fox News PAC giving money to Joe Manchin. Why wasn't this brought up? There's so many things that could have been brought up in this discussion that Dana Bash did not bring up. But it isn't just her. It's the entirety of the media will never go any deeper than surface level on any of these issues. It is embarrassing. Now, let me get to... I played the clip already. Let me get to the other part of this. So Democratic leadership being so incredibly weak. So Ryan Grimm here, I covered this briefly in another video, but Ryan Grimm here tweeting out, damning new email shows Heather Bresch, daughter of Joe Manchin, played a direct part in EpiPen price inflation scandal, according to just released court documents. And Joe Manchin is a part of this whole thing. So why wasn't this used? Or why isn't this used right now by Joe Biden as a way to try to whip Manchin's votes on this budget deal? As Kyle Kulinski tweeted at the time, he said here, if I'm Joe Biden, I tell Joe Manchin that my DOJ may just investigate his daughter and she may go to prison, unless, of course, he takes another look at the $3.5 trillion bill and has a change of heart. It's what FDR and LBJ would have done, and it would have worked. Exactly right. But Democratic leadership is so incredibly weak. Like, it's obvious at this point, anyone paying attention, that Joe Manchin clearly, it doesn't work in the interests of the average person. But knowing that, like having that knowledge, like the next step then is, what can Democratic leadership do to bring him back in line? And using a story like this would be one of the ways to do that. But Democratic leadership, whether it's Biden, whether it's Pelosi, Schumer, are unwilling to go to those lengths. But here again, Manchin's essentially a Republican undercover. That's what this all is about. So Democrats don't really have the Senate right now. I mean, both Manchin and Sinema are terrible. So Democrats don't really have the Senate unless leadership can try and whip their vote in some ways, like I just mentioned. Then ultimately here, you essentially have 2 Republicans in Manchin and Sinema pretending to be Democrats.